Become the teacher that you intended to be when you signed up to become a teacher, I hope. You know, you become that teacher rather than signing up as a teacher and then feeling like you were naive, or that you had a childish view, or an unrealistic view of it, when in fact we define what could be really realistic in our schools, I think. The teachers, they love their kids, they absolutely love them, but they understand where they've come from. Some of them, they understand the children's real stories. So how do we protect them into their futures when we've got to teach them Egyptians, which, as a kid once pointed out to me, Romans, Egyptians, they're all ages ago. What's the point? Well, as a teacher, you want to have the backup. You want your curriculum to have your back, don't you? You want your curriculum to cover your back, so that actually you've got the space to deliver what you need to deliver. That sense of wonder, or that sense of curiosity, is gently developed. We don't label it, we don't mark it in a different coloured pen. It's just part of the organic development, if you like, of what's going on in a classroom. I refer back a lot to Martin Haberman's work around the pedagogy of poverty, which is quite an old piece. You know, it's the early 90s, but it's truth. It's about how do schools set themselves up as being the curators of knowledge in their communities? How do schools establish themselves as that? And I suppose what we do in our work is we're saying we are those centres, we are the public intellectuals, we are here to support our families and our communities, and here is how we're going to do it. We started all this in secondary. This isn't, you know, this isn't just, you know, I was a hard-bitten, well, I wasn't that hard-bitten secondary teacher. And I never thought for a minute I'd end up working a lot with primary schools like I do now. But we used to use this approach. We used to think in this way, even though for me, I was still learning about it and building my own vocabulary around it. We would do this with some interesting kids in town centre Barnsley. We'd be doing this, and we found that there would be a change in behaviour. Kids would be more willing to buy in if actually there was something worth buying into. We built a curriculum that was trying to get the kids invested in all the time. How do we get them to care? That was our thing. How do we get them to? They're streetwise. How do we get them worldwise? From why do we have to do this? It's ages ago. Well, we've got to probably start with where the child is at and then work outwards. Mm-hmm. You know, how do we get kids to care about, you know, refugees drowning in the Mediterranean? How do you get a kid who's never been out of the town to be bothered about that? And those are our conversational starting points as professionals. We're starting with that. I remember having an inset day when I was full-time teaching, and we had some people come and tell us we had to be more creative. So we were all, you know, we all had manners, do you know what I mean? So we all engaged with it, and we all joined in, and that was on a Monday, and the kids came in on the Tuesday, and I had a year 11 form group, and one of my kids came to me at the lunchtime on the Wednesday and said, he was called Paul Whitefield, this kid, he said, "Sir, what happened on Monday at that training day?" And I said, "Why, Paul? What do you need to know for?" He said, "Just tell me what happened," he said. And I said, "Well, we learned, you know, we had to be more creative when we were teaching you." And this kid, he just went, "I thought as much." He said, "I've only been in a day and a half and I've already done 4 raps." I've started to think that engagement is just the articulation of manners and the meeting of expectations, which are probably printed on an A4 sheet that no one reads next to the whiteboard at the front of the class. I think we need to change that. I'm hearing tell now of of kids copying off interactive whiteboards, copying off. They're still doing it in some places. That's not engagement. That's just kids doing what they're told and not wanting to get into any bother. If I just keep my head down and I copy that, job's a good one. What we suggest in our work is there's well, and what Dorothy Hethcote suggested to us initially was there's engagement, but then if you want to get to the depth, you've got to take them over the bridge from engagement to investment. So if you want kids to really make progress, I think in your lessons, they've got to be invested in, and that's hard. That's hard. But that's why teaching's hard. I'd say botheredness, but she called it concern, and that's where you get that movement from engagement to investment, and that's where you've got the kids. It's not, fireworks aren't going off or anything like that. Kids are just perhaps, it's all right in your class. A learning worker will still come in and say, oh, your children are very engaged, but you can look around and them, so you'll be able to say, actually, these kids are actually really bothered about what they're doing. They're invested in it. Then beyond investment, you've got that idea of obsession, where and we've all been obsessed. I think most teachers have been obsessed about something they've been learning about in their lives, which is why you might have gone and done a degree in it, which is why you might have become a teacher, because you were passionate about literature. So I've got to teach Shakespeare. How am I going to get them bothered about Shakespeare? Well, I've got to build the botheredness. So rather than diving straight into a Shakespearean tragedy, we look at some examples of failed, flawed people from the real world. We look at them, and then we go into Shakespeare's Macbeth. But we've started with something that perhaps the children in the room are going to be able to talk about and contribute to. Creativity aspect of it isn't a relinquishing of responsibility. To be creative, I think, in a classroom, you've got to be absolutely on your mettle. To be creative in your classroom, you're holding on to them, but you're kind of letting them go as well.